Hi everybody, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Zach, and this is Perkenbark.
We're so happy you are here today to leave the old week behind and start the new week fresh with some music, coffee, and conversation.
Yeah!
What do we have as a theme this week?
We are talking about a recipe for recit, which sort of a inside singer joke a couple of ways. But first of all, we wanted to talk to you about, while we were sipping our coffee, about what recitative, what recit is. And then we're going to talk about kind of our recipe for putting it together into something that feels like music, because at times it really doesn't feel like music. It's super weird.
It is super weird.
And we'll talk about why it's weird. And then we're going to sing some. Yeah. So that's kind of the show. It's going to be a lot of talky and then a lot of singy. So
a little singy.
Some singy.
Some singy.
That's true. Not very much singy.
Yeah.
Anyway. So what is recitative?
Recitative. It's basically like if you think of a Broadway show, there are the big numbers and then there's all the dialogue, right? It's the dialogue that, in most cases, is what moves the plot forward, not necessarily the big numbers. That is especially the case in, let's say, French grand opera, in a lot of Mozart. Mm-hmm. And,
which is pretty much what we've got today, is French grand opera and Mozart.
Oh,
yep.
That's why I said that. It's in my brain.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, recitative is really what drives the plot forward. It's very speech-like, and...
So how is it different from actual music then? So when we say that like the big numbers don't drive the plot forward, those are the parts that we all know and that we hum along with, like La Donna Immobile, you know, Questa Quella. Why do I have the tenor one stuck in my head? I don't
know.
But you know, the things that like you know and you are...
it has a melody.
Yeah. Quando men vo. Like, you know these things. Even if you don't know those names, if I played those tunes for you, you would know exactly what each of those things is.
And what commercial it corresponds
and
to.
Exactly, what commercial it comes from. And but recitative is all that stuff in between that lets you get to those big moments and make them more impactful. Mm-hmm. So recitative has a really, really important function in opera, but it's weird. Oftentimes, the conductor will stop conducting, and it'll just be one instrument playing with you, like a duet. Mm-hmm. There's not really a set tempo, often. It probably changes key, 4 or 5 times in a couple of pages, which is really disconcerting and weird. There's phrases that are just one note, and you have to figure out what to do with this one note. And
that's recitative.
And it just feels not like music in a lot of cases, in a lot of ways. Especially for classical musicians where we're so used to being in ensemble, we're so used to pretty much working in bars and phrases and tempo and stuff like that, and it's not that at all. So it needs a different recipe.
Yeah, and that's not to say that there's not a rhyme or reason for it, just the opposite. So like we said, it's very speech-like, and this is going to bring us into our recipe. So what's the first item on our recipe?
Translate, if it's not in English or a language that you know, because everything about recitative is based on the language.
Yes.
It's not based on a tune. Any tunes that you might have are only there because they serve a dramatic purpose. They serve to highlight something in the dialogue.
Exactly. So translate, know what it means, get in your body, and number 2 would be
speaking it in English.
Speaking it in English. Speaking it in English and speaking it especially in that native language. And that's what's going to drive your rhythm, not necessarily what the rhythm is on the page. Though, if you have a really good librettist, it's pretty much going to...
and a good composer setting all that stuff.
Yeah. It's going to follow the speech pattern. Mozart is a prime example of that, and which is what I'm going to be showing you today, is a little bit of Mozart. Recitative, he absolutely goes with the text. And Da Ponte as well, who is the librettist for Così fan tutte. It is so indicative of the language.
It's
the
wild. Yeah, it's wild.
It's wonderful.
And you think it totally makes sense for somebody like da Ponte. I mean, he is Italian.
Yeah.
But Mozart was a polyglot. Right?
Yeah.
He I mean, because from his youth, he traveled all over Europe. In his letters, I guess he made puns that crossed languages, like just
Frasier
really
before Frasier.
just really wild stuff. Just absolutely, just could think in just a myriad of different languages, all at the same time, and keep them all straight. And there you go. One of the reasons that he's considered a genius. We actually had a master class with Martin Katz. Yeah, I was thinking Steven, somebody else, but yeah, Martin Katz, and he's a wonderful coach and pianist at the University of Michigan, and he came to Roosevelt, where we both went to school, and he said that he believes that if all of the rest of Mozart's works were lost, if only the recitatives that he wrote still existed, we would still consider him one of the greatest musical geniuses of all time.
Absolutely.
Because because he sets the language so well. So Rachel's going to be doing some of that, which is awesome. So we won't. Yeah, this is like super nerd out music stuff. So it's going to be great.
It is. But you don't have to know a lot about it to enjoy it. So we're giving you, we're lifting the curtain behind recitative so that hopefully you learn something about it, and you can pick out more things when you're listening to opera and try to figure out, okay, what is the flow of that text then? And then maybe you say, my love, can you make me some coffee? And then do your own opera in the morning. Sing to each other.
As you wish.
It gets real interesting in 21st century.
It does. Oh, yeah. I'm also going to talk a little bit about that toward the end of my singing time. And more modern opera and how this still matters, even though the things that we're looking at are pretty old at this point. Yeah. So, okay, back to the recipe then. So you said, translate it.
Translate.
Say it.
Say it.
Say it. Say it. Say it until it just feels like it's natural coming out of your mouth. Because it has to be natural when you declaim it. Because that's really what's happening. Then what's next? The notes?
Then you put the notes on. See, it's so far down the list, the notes, that...
It's wild. And likely, we're not going to model this today, but likely it makes sense to learn the notes separate from the text first. And also to pay attention to what's happening harmonically.
Yeah. It'll normally outline the chord that you either just came from or you're going into.
Yeah. But looking at how those things trace from the beginning of your recitative to the end, beginning of your scene to the end, what key do you start in? What key do you end in? Where is it major? Where is it minor?
Yeah.
Where are you in these crunchy chords? Where are you in very simple, bright, nice sounding chords? And then the next step then is putting all of that together with the text and saying, all right, so I know that this is how the language goes, and this is how the music feels underneath music. It's weird because it's not quite music.
It's not. It's more, to me, it's more of a character.
Yeah. Because
you'll have these big chord changes, and it'll set your mood for you most of the time.
Yeah.
So if there's a change, if there's I'm thinking of Mitra di. From Don Giovanni, another Mozart, that recitative gives you so much feeling, so much tugging of the heartstrings, so much anger, and you get that first. The character's driving it, her thoughts are driving it, but you hear it first in the music, in the chords.
Wow.
I know, which I think is really cool.
And
so that's another thing to listen for.
And it's something that, if you've ever watched a Hollywood movie, you're already used to.
Yes. A scary movie?
A scary movie, a dramatic movie, anything where the strings swell up, we know that means love. Anything where there's like screechy sounds, we know that means horror. Anything where there's like a piano playing by itself kind of slowly, we know that it means like sadness or melancholy. Like these things are what those musical gestures mean changes over time, but the fact that they underpin drama that we see every day is still there. It's still there.
Absolutely.
So it's really cool to like unlock that in a different context
Mm-hmm.
too. And so it's really not. It's just extending the things that you're already doing if
Yeah.
you've never really listened to what's happening in recitative before.
That's right.
Yeah.
Whew, I think those are all the steps, right?
Then we got to, and then really,
then we
like,
have to put it together.
then you do it all. Then you do it all over again.
Yes.
'Cause-
Yes.
And then you do it all over again.
That's
and then
part
if
of
it's
the
with friends, yeah, then you got to add in all your friends,
all the people in the scene.
all the people in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what are you going to be reciting?
Sure. You've heard it before if you've been a fan and follower of the show. Come Scoglio is from Mozart's Così fan tutte, as I mentioned, and I'll be doing the recitative that is before the aria. So my character, Fiorligi, she mad. She's real upset because these two men are trying to win her affection, her and her sister. And they have already been betrothed and love promised to other people. Plot twist, it's actually those men, but they just switched places and put on a mustache and a hat and apparently fooled the women. Ladies, clearly a man wrote this because we're not fooled that easily, right? Yeah, no. But anyway, that is what's happening, and Fiordligi is standing her ground, at least initially, and she says, get out of here, essentially. So I will be going through just what we said. I'll be going through almost the whole recipe. I'm not going to be, like Zach said, not going to be going through learning the notes. That's already been done and we explained it. But I am going to go through the text, the English, which will actually be written on the music, which you'll be able to see in a moment. And yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them in that chat box. This is, as you know, totally interactive. So if you have a comment or a question about anything that we're talking about, lay it on us. And this is Come Scoglio.
Cool. I'm actually going to talk about mine too.
Oh, cool.
Because then we're just going to go to
one into the next.
to the studio.
Cool.
Yeah. So after Rachel is done, then I'll be doing Zürga's recitative from the beginning of his aria from Pearl Fishers by Bizet. Everybody knows the beautiful love duet between the baritone and the tenor, and yes, it is truly a love duet.
It is.
It's like bro love, but it's love, and it's gorgeous. But this is a different section. So this is a love triangle. Zürga is the man in charge of this village. Layla is the person that he loves, but she's now become a priestess. She's given herself over to chastity for the good of the village to prevent tsunamis. Basically.
Yeah.
And then Nadir, the final guy, he catches making out with Layla and sentences him to death. As that's happening, a giant storm rolls in and destroys most of the village. So this is now after the fact, after the storm has subsided, trying to pick up the pieces and decide what to do.
It's intense.
And how he feels about all of this. So yeah, so we'll talk about that more later, because there's also some other musical elements that aren't in the Shakespeare that come up in an opera that's later in time, in the Romantic era. But yeah, so we'll get there. I'm very excited about this.
I was gonna say, can you tell we're excited?
This
We're talking
is a cool
so
one.
much.
Yeah. All right. Anyway,
Let's do it.
let's do it.
Yeah. welcome to our studio space. Hopefully you can see what I'm seeing, the music on the screen. And I'm just going to go over a couple of things and then I'm going to get to singing it. So, as we said, I translated this, as you can see, and then I just did our step 2, which is speaking it in Italian. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and see if I can scroll through at the same time. There's a lot of stuff going on, but we're going to make it work. All right, so hopefully you'll be able to feel the rhythm of the text and the drama behind it as I say it. All right, so here we go. Temerari, sortite fuori da questo loco e non profani l'alito infausto degli infami detti, nostro cor, nostro orecchio e nostri affetti. Invan per voi, per gli altri invan, si cerca le nostre alme sedur. L'intata fede che per noi già si diede ai cari amanti, saprem loro serbar infino a morte, a dispetto nel mondo e della sorte. All right, so Fiordaligi's going back and forth, right? So she's angry at these men who are trying to win their affections, and then she's thinking of her beloved. So she's thinking of her beloved Guglielmo, and saying, you know, we're pure. We're already promised to our you know, betrothed. Sure, we're gonna call that a word. And you know, you can't corrupt us in any way. So see if you can pick out some of those things that we talked about, especially in the accompaniment, that's going to set the scene. So I'm gonna sing it once for you. All right, I'm gonna see if I can scroll at the same time. Let's see what happens. Fuori da questo loco e non profani l'alito infausto degli infami nostro cor, nostro orecchio e nostri affetti. Invan per voi, per gli altri invan, si cerca le nostre alme sedur. Intata fede che per noi già si diede ai cari amanti. Saprem loro serbar infino a morte. A dispetto del mondo e della sorte. And then it goes into the aria. So hopefully you were able to feel those changes, especially that shift between Fiordaligi being angry and those softer moments of her thinking about Guglielmo. So that was, I don't think I missed anything, right?
I think you did the whole recipe.
Yay, I did the whole recipe. So let us know your thoughts. If it tasted good, if it tasted bad, I don't know. I'm going to go with the recipe thing. Sure. And next up, Zach will be singing his
Pro Fishers.
recitative from Pro Fishers. Here we go.
kind of a long transition, but we made it. Here we go. So, Zirga has a storm that is ending. We're going to hear the storm first. And he sings about the storm is ended. And he says, so if we're going to do it in English because my copy doesn't have English on it. The storm is calming. The wind is settling down. And I'm doing this kind of the way that I would translate it. So I've already done word for word translation. This is sort of to make it feel more personal to me. Like the water, like those things, my emotions are starting to abate. So he's like feeling like what's happening in the weather. I'm here alone, and I call in vain for calm and peace. He's going crazy in his head because he has sentenced his best friend to death, and it's messing with him. Because then he goes on and he says, La fièvre me dévore. The fever, and he's like, no, like I call out for peace, but the fever is just devouring me. And my soul is oppressed with one thought. Nadir! Nadir! Oh, Nadir! You must die at the dawn of the new day. Boy, okay. So, in French. L'orage s'est calmé. Déjà les vents se taisent. Comme eux, les colères s'apaisent. Moi seul, j'appelle en vain le calme et le sommeil. La fièvre me dévore, et mon âme oppressée n'a plus qu'une pensée. Nadir! Nadir! Ah, Nadir! Doit expirer au lever du soleil. So, what's kind of cool, I think, about this one, it rhymes a little bit. And there's like this fun, I don't know, like, it just sort of like, it almost sounds like an invocation. Like he's calling on the gods, or like, I don't know. It just seems very, like, creepy, almost, to me. And that's kind of lost in the way that it's set. So this is another reason why it's important to just say the text, because you might find something that you didn't know was there. What's nice about this one too is the way that it's set, and the way that it sort of accelerates to the end of the scene. They kind of go hand in hand. They kind of go together. So yeah, let's sing it. Let's see what it's all about. I'm gonna go back in the music a little bit, and then we're gonna go and sing, so we get to hear the storm one more time. L'orage s'est calmé. Déjà les vents se taisent. Comme les colères s'apaisent. seul, j'appelle en vain le calme et le sommeil. La fièvre me dévore et mon âme oppressive n'applique une pensée. Nadir, Nadir, ah, Nadir doit expirer au lever du soleil. So there we go. It's cool, right? I think it's amazing how he goes from saying, here is this storm, it's abating, and you can see in the music, the storm is abating. There's not that much written on the page. It's really small sounding. It's very simple. And then he's like, I'm trying to be like that, but I can't. And then you see what happens in the music is it starts to really like pick up. There's more notes. It's louder and louder and louder until he finally gets to, Nadir, talking about his friend. And it sort of just like stalls out for a second. Like, crap. Like, what am I gonna do?
The storm is inside.
And it has gone, that storm has gone inside. Which is so, so cool. And then it's like a death march. Ba, 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 ba. And then I think it's awesome. It's such a cool way of getting there. And it really does like move the story forward. Here he is, he's suffering this conflict of conscience, and ultimately he says, nope, this has to be the way that it happens. This has to be the way that it happens. And then all of that, like, you see this internal struggle, and you see how big it is, and then he has to go and deal with it. And that's the aria. So I think it's so cool. I just think, clearly, but I think it's just like, that's it. That's recitative. So this one was different from Rachel's in a lot of ways. You can kind of tell, you can kind of feel that if there was an orchestra, it would be a lot bigger here. There's a lot of like rumbly bumbly noises. There's a lot of like explosive sort of things going on. And that's because this comes from an era where orchestras were a lot bigger than what they were when Mozart was writing music. Mozart also was writing that particular piece for just a harpsichord and voice. So it's just you and one instrument telling the story, as opposed to you leading the whole orchestra in this big thing. And it's amazing how by this time in musical history, like, that idea of the orchestra and the language sort of becoming closer and closer together is starting to happen even more. I mean, thanks to people like Mozart who, started the ball rolling on that kind of stuff. And then if you move into modern opera and modern music, it's basically all this. I mean, there's very little that we could really call like aria, or that we could call like a trio, like a set piece of music. There's very few of those like set pieces. So understanding how to take language and turn it from language into something that's emotive, into something that fits with the notes, into something that fits into a greater piece of music is really, really important for opera. That is the end of our TED Talk, I think. So, do you want to come up and we can say
sure.
bye from here?
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off this thing.
Hello.
Yeah.
See, our talk space and our performance space are pretty close together.
They're really close together. And so now I'm going to get rid of the music. Hang on. Aha! There we
did
are.
it.
Yeah, great. So, there we go. A recipe for recit.
That's right. A recipe.
A recipe. I've been waiting all day for you to say that.
Yeah, I know. I like to smash words together like in German.
Yeah.
Well, before we go, there are some comments, and Frank made a really great comment how the recitative feels like plain song or plain chant in plain song and chant.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's not that far off in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And you think that like the very earliest operas grew out of that tradition. I mean, there's not that far away from it.
Yeah. Well, and all the harpsichord stuff started in the Baroque era.
Oh.
That's another super nerdy conversation that I just won't get into.
Oh yeah.
But thank you all so much for joining us this week and every week. Like we said last week, we're so excited to be back. If you have any theme suggestions, honestly, any pieces of music you really want us to sing, we can do a total request live kind of deal. Maybe not live because opera's very difficult to learn on the spot. I'm a soprano. I don't know how great my sight reading is. No, it's okay. But yeah, please let us know. Keep sharing our page. Keep telling people about Perk and Bark. And yeah, hopefully you just continue to learn more and share with us and each other, and
we're gonna be
drink
here,
some coffee.
So it's gonna be great. Yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. Thank you for all of those who share and like the show. Continue to do so, please, because we want to grow the conversation, as always.
Yeah.
And I think with that, have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.